Hey there, everybody. Today is Wednesday, September 13th, and this is Intrinsic Motivation from a Homie's Perspective. This is Hamza.
And I'm David.
And today I am really excited. I know I say that all the time, but I'm really excited about the people that we get to speak with on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. It's just, we cover so much, and today is no different. Today we have Debra Scott, who is an instructor at our sister facility at the Boulder Psychic Horizons Institute out in Boulder, Colorado. And I'm really excited to speak with Debra today because in Third Dimension, we always talk about a lot of polarities, and we talk about hot or cold, black or white, right or wrong, on and on and on. And many people are in two different camps. They may say, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual, or I'm spiritual and I'm not religious. And with Debra actually is merging the two worlds together. As I mentioned, she's an instructor at the Boulder Psychic Horizons, but she is also a doctoral candidate for theology studies. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce and welcome you to our podcast, Debra Scott.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. This is a really great opportunity.
Absolutely. And so when we talk about separating everything and merging together, especially a topic as heavy as religion versus spirituality, how is it that you can merge the two worlds where many people cannot?
That's a loaded question. Well, so I took minister's training at Psychic Horizons way back, and the Bible classes lit me up so much. I'm like, you cannot teach this out of context. You can't take anything, Old Testament, New Testament, and not understand who wrote it, when, and why, and what. Every single thing in the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament, has two opinions, has at least two sides, and one side won over the other. And that's what we got today. So my light-ups, I'm going, I got to learn more about this. So I did go back, and I'm in a traditional school of theology, and learning, it's like putting it in context helps me really understand it's kind of the truth. It's like reading the Bible psychically, or understanding, like going behind the screen, the Wizard of Oz, and seeing what's going on. And it's really cool. It's really, some of my discoveries in my research, I love it. I told you yesterday, it's mind candy for me.
Mm-hmm.
And my dissertation is on Mark 4:11, which is where Jesus says to the disciples, unto you is given secret knowledge of God's kingdom. But I have to talk to everybody else in parables. So my research is, what does that mean? What is the secret knowledge of God's kingdom? And I find the more I learn, the more I'm fascinated by what was really going on.
Wow.
It's much different, I think, at least it's much different than what we were taught. It's much different than the version that came forward through time.
Yeah. Wow.
One thing that we always like to highlight with anyone that we speak with is their awakening moment or their hello moment, where in many cases they were living one life, and then there was a defining moment which led them to where they are today. So if you can give us a little bit of your background before Boulder Psychic Horizons, because I think that's really interesting as well. If you could share that, that'd be great.
Well, it's one of those lifetimes where it's been several lifetimes, but I didn't die. I just went on to the next. So I was raised Missouri Synod Lutheran, very fundamentalist Lutheran in rural Minnesota. But early on, I was having visions and sort of esoteric experiences that weren't allowed in my church. So, and I always had, I spent a lot of time in nature, walking in nature, even as a very young girl. And I always experienced God as love. I never experienced him as this harsh disciplinarian that I learned about in Sunday school and catechism. So I really have spent my whole life searching for what's going on down here. What is this? And subsequently have had other visions and kind of extrasensory experiences. My trade is I'm a nursing administrator, and for many years, 14 years, I worked internationally. So I lived in Micronesia for 8 years, and called the Northern Mariana Islands, and I studied with traditional healers there and shamans. I've done volunteer work in Africa, and I lived for a while in a fundamentalist Bedouin farming community in Saudi Arabia. And while I was in Micronesia, I got to travel a lot. So I, got to go to Tibet and India and Indonesia and Bali, and everywhere I went, I was looking for what's going on down here. I got to spend some time in Scotland at the Abbey of Iona studying spirituality and sexuality. I spent 4 years in Maui studying to be a traditional Hawaiian healer. And I've also studied in India with Siddha Shaivism with a guru. So it's been a series of my whole life trying to understand and never doubting that there was a purpose and that I would come to it. And then about 5 years ago, kind of a personal meltdown crisis time, I ended up in Boulder again, found Psychic Horizons, and it was home. I mean, because I always was psychic, but couldn't, it never was in a world where that was acceptable or where I really understood it or was encouraged to develop it. So I've been to everything there. I mean, I've taken every class I possibly can. And I'm in the TM program now, learning to channel. But I'm also now teaching. I'm teaching. We're starting a new Way of Mastery seminar on November 5th.
Oh.
And I'm also going to start a new Bible study class, which I probably have to find another name for that because that doesn't sound very interesting. But we're going to start that again, I think, in January. So.
Wow. Just real quick, can I ask, who's teaching the TM class there?
Hope Houston, mostly.
Okay. Cool. How long of a program is it?
It's 4 years.
4 years, okay. Yeah.
And I'm 2 years into it, so I started my PhD in TM at the same time.
Oh,
so
okay.
I get the academic and the psychic part of Jeshua. And also part of, I think, the Psychic Horizons is actually understanding what, there's so much negativity about the Bible and Jesus, all of the sort of punishment that went with that, and really killing anybody that doesn't agree with you, and to really find that Christ force vibration and that love. That's coming home for me. So I'm just really privileged to be a teacher of things Christ forced and things as Jeshua.
Yeah. Wow. That sounds great. You didn't, you probably did. Have you ever heard of the name David Ponadel?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay. Way back in the day, he was in BPI, and he used to do these great sermons on Sunday. I think he passed away, unfortunately, a few years ago, but I think you really would have loved him because he had a great way of, kind of translating the Bible from a psychic point of view. It was really incredible. One of the nicest guys, too. And every time, like when I first was listening to a lot of those classes, he kept coming to mind. I'm like, God, Debra would probably love him. They could just talk shop all day because he had a lot of Bible information too. It was pretty good. Yeah.
When looking back, Debra, you mentioned going to Boulder about 5 years ago. and you were saying that there was a change that was going on in your life. Looking back, would you attribute that to everything else that was happening universally for the year 2012?
Oh, yes. It was a certifiable dark night of the soul. And it forced me really to awaken psychically and develop, raise my own vibration. And really, this is real, and it's time to get real about it. So.
What were the circumstances that led you to walking through the Psychic Horizons doors that very, very first time?
Well, I was working with another shaman in Boulder who was an old friend. I'd lived in Boulder before. And I left there and went to a coffee shop, and there was a Psychic Horizons newsletter. And I read it, and I said, that's it. That's where I belong. And I called Hope Hewison, and she did a reading like the next day, I think. And after that, I just started taking every class I possibly could. I started spending as much time as I could there, because in the energy and the vibration I was dealing with was the only place I felt safe.
Safe, yeah. Boy, that's a familiar story.
You guys have same experiences?
You're one of the people that I know, a few people that I know that have their feet in both worlds, if you will, with the Psychic Horizons, which is considered air energy, and the shaman world, which is considered earth energy. And there's usually a good mismatch or complementary ways that they go about things as far as modality. Do you see similarities versus differences, and how are you able to use both?
Oh, good question. Well, I tend to mostly use a really excellent shaman. She studied in Peru, that Peruvian tradition, for my energy checks. There's more invocation of the spirits, I think. There's more, I guess that's right. It's more the earth energy comes in, and I find it very powerful. Psychic Horizons is more, where am I, when I do an energy check there, it's more, where am I at? Where's my head at? What am I ready to release out of my own aura? Healing happens, but it's on a more subtle level, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, I never thought about it being different, but it is. It's a different energy.
Absolutely. Everyone that I know that has familiarity with both modalities would compare the two. I mean, there's obviously some differences, but they found a way to kind of juggle them both. And you sound like a lot of us that in our path we come across so many different modalities. Some stay with us, some kind of we go away, but it makes us who we are in this present moment.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think we're led to what we need. So it changes as our path changes and our consciousness changes.
Mm-hmm. So you definitely were giving Mary Bell an apple. You were one of those brown-nosing students that, like you mentioned, you went to every class and so on and so forth. And
actually,
now you're. Go ahead.
I wasn't. Well, I studied with Hope most of it, but in Mary Bell's class, her minister's class, I was the bad boy. I was always lit up.
Mm-hmm.
And we laugh about it now, but I'm like, no, this ain't right. You can't say that. and I was going to quit because I was like, this is too weird. I don't, I'm kind of like the accidental minister.
Wow.
But I hung in there, and then I realized what was missing for me, and that's when I started going to theology school.
I love it. Mm-hmm. And so you're now teaching. You've gone from being a student there to teaching classes. So If you can
Yes.
explain briefly with the 3 class, you had that Bible class, what it looks like you're going to change the name for that, but for your previous classes, you had 3, they were about 3 hours each. If you can give a little bit of detail about each class.
So the first class, and we're probably going to change the format because it's too much information in each class, but the first class was really about the Old Testament and the historical context of that, and particularly who is God. We looked at Abraham and Moses in those stories because there were different names of gods and there was different functions. So, and the purpose of that was really to is the Iron Age animal sacrifice God named Yahweh still the God that had lots of rules and lots of punishment? Is that still the God you owe allegiance to? And is that your choice, or is there another more updated version? And I also love, well, I don't want to get into it because so many people get lit up, but Abraham was in the land of Ur, which is Iraq, which was the capital, the Sumerian capital of the Anunnaki. When 3 dudes walk up to him and he identifies them as God, and so we got to talk. And he makes them a big lunch. So just comparing, looking at the history of that and where it came from, where that story originated, to me is really fascinating. And in fact, I was just reviewing today, one of the really cool things about Genesis is that a lot of it was written in code. There's a Bible code in Genesis, and it was discovered at the Hebrew University in Israel in the mathematics department. And Greg Braden's written a book called The God Code. He's an engineer.
Yeah.
And he's identified it as the code. He's equated it to DNA code. So my theory, not anybody else's theory, just me, is that the ancients were trying to give us information about our DNA and how to update it and enhance it. That's what I think. So that was the first session was, and we spent a fair amount of time on Moses and that God, that really harsh God that, supported and led the army in mass genocide and was all about the real estate deal, putting that in historical context and releasing, number one, judgment about it, and number two, any lingering, Judeo-Christian formats and ethics and paradigms pretty much got hammered into a lot of us through different lifetimes. And understanding where that came from, and are we ready to release it? What, who wrote it? What's it about? Is it current? Is it present time? And updating it. So I think that's valuable, particularly if you've had a strong religious background. The next class was about the mysteries, the mystery schools in the Old Testament especially. And then we talked about the Essenes also, which are when the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered. We learned a lot about a Jewish group that approached their religion in an esoteric way, in a psychic way. So I think one of the highlights, actually I don't know if I covered it, but so Elijah is one of the early prophets, and he was, performing miracles. He was healing people, raising the dead. He had a school called the School of Prophets, where he was teaching these skills to other people. And this is about, I'm not sure when Kings was written, but Elijah lived probably 900 BCE, thereabouts. And he ascended directly into heaven. He didn't die. And his mantle fell to Elisha. And Malachi, the book of Malachi, said that Elijah will come back as the messenger, the harbinger of the Messiah. And then, of course, the New Testament believes that Elijah reincarnated into John the Baptist, and he was the announcer of the Messiah. But there was, that long ago, there was an ancient mystery school, and also the Temple of Solomon was built about 10,000, give or take. And Solomon was reported to be he was a wise man, but also there's quite a bit of information about him being able to command the animals and heal, and he released spells and cast out demons. And the first temple had a tradition of being a mystery school, and there's lots of texts that describe what that was. And one of the really interesting things to me is that in the Holy of Holies in the first temple, actually second temple too, the symbol was two cherubim having sex.
Wow.
And it wasn't, they don't explain it. So, like, only the high priest could go into the Holy of Holies. But this, I really think they were teaching Tantra. Back in the old days. I mean, what else would that be? And then Isaiah, the book of Isaiah, we talked about that, is a lot of Merkaba literature in Isaiah, and Isaiah is probably one of the older books of the Bible. And it starts it starts training people on ascension practices, and it's Merkaba, Hekalat, it's chariot palaces literature. So the palaces had 7 levels that you ascended to, and it took very specialized training. And then, of course, Merkaba practices, Merkaba literature survived, or became more prominent into the Dead Sea Scrolls and with the Essenes. And then eventually, was passed on as the Kabbalah that became the Kabbalah practices and literature. So, and then the Essenes.
That's a lot for the second class.
Well, and then we talked about the Essenes. So, and that's just totally awesome too.
Absolutely, we're going to spend some time with the second class. So, I do want to spend more time on that, and then maybe we'll have you back and talk about the first and third class, because you didn't even touch the third class.
Third class was about Jesus and disciples and the Gnostics. That's all I'll say.
The first 2 were like 5-minute dissertations, and the third is, it's just one sentence. No worries.
No worries.
So let's. Of course, and we'll spend more. We'll have you back on and talk about those other classes. But let's stay with the second class for a little while, and let's talk about the Essenes and the mystery schools. And before getting into it, I have a question for you. With mystery schools in times past, they were always more of a rite of passage, or you had to earn your way through the protocol, if you will. And right, and now there's more information than ever in 2017, but there isn't that structure for folks. So I wanted to get your opinion as to, do you have an opinion of what is better? Do you think that if you were in a more structured environment, you could handle what you're getting? Because a lot of people are drinking from the fire hose and really are not really processing what they're absorbing.
Right. Yeah, that's really true. So the Essenes probably were the ones that described it the best. They had a 3-year training, 3 different levels. And the 4th year you became kind of like a master. That's when you really became full. They called it metanoia, which was fully enlightened consciousness. But yeah, you started out your first year just sort of hanging out. Well, also in early Christianity, there was also mystery schools, and we still have evidence of those. And there were 3 levels of training in those early Christian mystery schools. The first level was really, it's what the church took the lowest common denominator, and I hope I don't offend anybody by saying that, but it was for anybody that walked in the door. It was how to lead a moral life. It was, some service, how you functioned in the family and the community, kind of the 10 Commandments sort of thing. So it was just becoming part of a community and leading a moral, ethical life and serving others was the first level. And once you mastered that, the second level was more of an inner journey into releasing those, like your anxieties, your fears, your phobias, your addictions, really working on yourself. A lot of the work that we do in Psychic Horizons, I'm sure you do in Atlanta too, the inner work of clearing yourself of bad programming, past life stuff, so that you clear yourself out. And then the third, and in early Christianity, it could take however long it took in the early mystery schools. And the third level was enlightenment, and you really started bringing the Christ force full on into your body and walking in the light, holding that vibration 24/7. And that's where you learn to heal and, perform miracles. And the second and third levels were eliminated basically by the church. So I think there would be value in having a mystery school that, with a very spiritual focus, that had those 3 levels or had some stepwise preparation.
Yeah. So why, I have to ask, because this is a question I've had kind of, most of my life, or at least from maybe my teens on, but why, in all your studies and whatnot, why did Jesus, like you said, I'll talk to you, to give you the mysteries, but I have to talk to everyone else in parables. Why was that? Or why do you think that was?
Well, so we know, scholars don't know, but we know because Mary Bell channels Jesus, and we have the Way of Mastery where he says he was in the sea. So the 12 disciples, and there were more than 12, there were a lot of people that walked with Jesus, were probably also Essenes or affiliated Jewish baptizing sects that had sects, S-E-C-T, that had that training, that inner training, those different levels of initiation. Mm-hmm. And in fact, when John the Baptist baptized people, you got full metanoia. You were drop-kicked through the goalposts of enlightenment. You woke up in a whole new world, a whole new consciousness. It's called metanoia. And there were lots of people, historically, that John the Baptist baptized that were walking around performing miracles and preaching and doing what Jesus was doing. There were other messianic contenders that had been baptized by John the Baptist. So it was a question of initiations and studying, and we know that Jesus studied since he was he tells us, since he was a very young man in the Essene mystery schools. And in fact, he says, this is a really cute story. He says in The Way of Mastery, one of the recordings, that one of his Essene masters gave him the assignment when he was 14, that before he went to bed, he had to remember every holy instant, which means every time he brought the Christ force to another person. And Jesus said, when I was 14 and they'd ask, I go, yeah, no, I forgot again. I'm sorry. Yeah, I didn't get to it today. But he said by the time he was 16, it was what he lived for. So we know that Jesus studied, and we know that the disciples, particularly John the Baptist and Jesus, and probably Andrew and Peter, studied in the Essene mystery schools and were prepared from a very young age. They were talking to people that didn't have that training and didn't have that level of initiation or awareness or even maybe that value that was important. So he came up with brilliant parables that were of their world of farming and seeds and fishing and things that they would understand. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I've always, because I can remember when I was a lot younger, I'm like, why doesn't Jesus just come down and just tell everyone, break it down to everyone, just tell everyone how it is.
Yeah. But he was healing, and he and the disciples were healing people as he was teaching. So he was opening them up. They were getting an initiation. It just they didn't maybe understand it on that level.
Yeah.
So when we started the podcast, I was talking about the polarities, and in his time it was no different. I guess the counterparts of the Essenes were the Pharisees. And could you explain a little bit about their commonalities and differences?
Between the Essenes and the Pharisees? Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. How much time do I have here?
One sentence, please.
Well, no, because there's some really cool history that has gotten lost about how this emerged, how Jesus is always trash talking the Pharisees, or he may not have done that. He's represented the authors of the New Testament, represent him doing that. But real quick, because this is so cool, I got to tell you. Second Temple Judaism was a time where there were, how can I tell this real quickly? So the Greeks took over, and there was this really crazy Greek ruler called Epiphanes, and the Maccabees were the southern kingdom. They were Bedouins. They rebelled against this crazy Greek guy and kicked him out. And so the Jews, for the first time in a really long time, ruled Judah. And everybody thought that they would put the high priest back in power once the crazy Greek was gone. And they didn't. They put their cousin Jonathan in as the high priest. And he did not have the training or the knowledge, the secret knowledge or the initiations that the high priests of the old temples would have had. So the high priest, who would have been put back in power, left and went to Egypt and created another temple. There were two temples at Jesus' time. There was a temple at Leontopolis in Egypt where the traditional priest, the priest with all the mysteries and the initiations, and it was called the sons of Zadok. And close by there was a school called the Therapeutae. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
I haven't.
They were healers, and they taught healing and magic, but basically they took the Jewish mystery schools, and they took it to Egypt. And out of that tradition in Egypt, the Essenes developed as a separate sect. And 200 years before Jesus, there was an Essene teacher of righteousness. And the Bedouins, the really fundamentalist people that took over in Jerusalem, killed him. They martyred him. And so the Essenes they called themselves the sons of light, and they called what became the Pharisees the breakers of the covenant because of that. So bad blood happened ever since then. Long 200-year history of the Pharisees and the Essenes fussing and fighting. The difference is the Pharisees they became rabbinical Judaism. They were normative Judaism. They were trying to keep society going and cope with everything that was going on. And they were more superficial, sort of kind of like our, I don't know, kind of like hedge funds managers or something, trying to make money and status, and the Essenes felt that they, and the temple in Egypt felt that they had the true old wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
They had the true mysteries and the true knowledge of God. Sorry, that was long, but that's such a cool part of history that people don't know.
No, it wasn't long at all. I thought that was perfectly explained.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's one of the cool things, that once you start understanding what was really happening back then, and what it's like, it's a completely different story. It's different than what we got.
Yeah. Imagine once you start kind of separating the truths from the lies, it's a completely different story, and kind of looking with your own eyes.
Now, with Mary Bell channeling Jesus and you going through theology, have you asked during the channel where you were energetically at that time, or have you done any past life regression to go back to that time period?
Yeah, Jesus said I walked with him. So I was a man. I walked with him.
Oh, so you're one of his disciples?
Yeah, I was.
Cool. All right.
And what was it like?
What was what like?
What was it like with Mary Bell channeling Jesus? Was it more of the thought of, but you're uncovering so much of what we perceive to be the reality then, and you turned it on its ear. And with Mary Bell channeling, you're getting a little bit of his personality. So is he the authoritarian that many people would think, or otherwise?
Oh my gosh, no, he's a rascal.
Yeah,
he cracks himself up.
Yeah.
When I first the beautiful thing about being able also concurrently to study with Jesus in person, as it were, in channel, is you get the vibration every time. You just get this unbelievable healing Christ force energy that he brings with him, and it's really a distinctive love and a really distinctive healing energy. So, but no, he's funny. So when I first started my PhD and I was really struggling with what should my dissertation be about, I asked him one time, well, what should I want to study what you were really teaching. What should I focus on? And he goes, well, I think you should study the effect of amusement on a religion. I go, thanks. That's my advisor's really going to love that one. Another time I asked him, what was it like before the fall? Before we fell into density, what was it like and what happened? Why did we fall?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he said, before the fall, there was conscious creation. So if you thought apple, you could hold out your hand and materialize an apple.
Yeah.
And he goes, and why did you fall? He goes, well, to me, he's talking to me, he says, well, you fell because chocolate doesn't taste the same on the side as it does. So, and I love chocolate, so he's always teasing me, and he plays jokes on. Oh my gosh,
I love it.
I know. At almost every channel, he cracks some joke or teases somebody some way.
Yeah.
And it's very loving teasing, but nonetheless, he's a rascal.
Would you say he's lighthearted?
Oh, he's extraordinarily lighthearted.
I'm sorry about that. I couldn't resist.
Extraordinarily lighthearted.
So now you asked a really good question of another contrast, right? You were talking about pre and post fall, right? And so now you had mentioned Greg Braden, and you had mentioned DNA activation, in touch with the Merkaba and such. And there's a lot of, I'm sure that's a whole nother conversation, but is there an easy way to get to the ascension that everyone wants? or should we just be as lighthearted as our teacher?
Boy, you ask easy questions, don't you? So we're all on our own path, and I think the Earth is ascending right now, so we're all on the ascension path, and it's not easy. I mean, anybody who's studying right now knows the energy is intense. I liken it to surfing the big waves. Sometimes I feel like I'm not riding the wave, I'm getting pounded by the wave. So the easy answer is, so if you want to ascend right now, just bring just love and bring the Christ force fully into your physical body and nothing else. That's all it takes. However, it's not that easy to do that. So, because we've all got a lot of junk programming and childhood stuff and past life stuff and society around us, we react to it, the earth, what's going on, and especially this country right now. we respond emotionally to it, and that takes us out of the Christ force. That takes us out of that pure love, and we start matching other things. So it takes some effort and some studying and some, a consciousness, some awareness of what we're thinking and feeling, and a purposeful course of study to improve your vibration and improve your inner world continuously. But it's loving yourself and loving others. And nothing else. That's kind of the short answer.
Yeah, the short answer.
Now, one thing that I liked in your classes is that those classes were 3 hours, and for me, I was okay with it, because I listen to everything in 2 times the speed, which is fine. But one of the highlights that you kept driving home in your presentations were for everyone to get out of their own space and get out of the intellectual space of trying to uncover what was happening in the past intellectually, and more so looking at it for how we can apply it to today's life. And this is our first time doing this, but per your request, we were offline. We were talking about, you kind of hinted to where we are in the States today, in the United States, and you wanted to set aside some time to do a meditation. And awesome. I wanted to give you that time to do that, if you still want to.
Yeah, great. Let me get myself grounded and centered real quick.
Okay.
And the audience, what kind of tools would they have?
It's across the board. We do have some former students from Horizon Center here in Atlanta, and we had Mary Bell on. I would say it's across the board.
Okay, that helps. All right, so let's go inside. Go into your beautiful self. And just start by taking some deep breaths. And breathe. Can you hear me? Breathe out. Yeah. Breathe out longer than you're breathing in. And take another deep breath. And one more. And as you're breathing, become aware that you're breathing oxygen, which is a gift from Mother Earth. It comes from the plants and the trees and the water. And you're also breathing in life force. You're breathing in prana, which is the gift of life. And this is your intimate connection to God, to Source, and to Gaia. So as you breathe again, become aware of that. And bring that life force into every part of your body, every cell, your toes, the top of your head. And become aware that you are being breathed. That this life force, prana, this energy comes into you. You're breathed. Whether you're asleep, if you were unconscious for some reason just now, you would still be breathed. This gift of life would still be coming in and out and animating your cells, giving you the gift of life. And be aware that you can consciously bring in more of that life force as you breathe. You can set your intention to have more prana, more life, more gift of breath of life. Bring it in and raise your vibration. Next, let's ground. Picture a beam of light from your first or your second chakra, whatever feels right. Wide as your hips, straight down into the crystalline core of Mother Earth. And as you connect with that crystalline core, you start to resonate to Mother Earth. All of your elements come from Mother, as your physical body start to resonate. And just send a hello, send a gratitude down to Mother Earth for all that she's given us, for all that she supports us. And then next, bring down a beam of light from the core crystal of the central sun of the galaxy, or Source. Bring it down through your crown chakra, through all of your chakras, down to the bottom of your aura. And if you want, you can send a little bit of that Source energy down to Mother Earth. And now you're in a vertical connection to the crystalline core of Mother and the crystalline core of Source. And just put some roses, picture a rose out in front of you, and pull out any energy of anything you're trying to fix, anything you're working on, anything that you think is not okay right now in present time. And you don't have to, no effort, don't have to think about it, just pull out that energy. Send that rose to the edge of the universe, explode it. Put up another rose, it can be whatever color feels right to you. And pull out any energy where you're judging others, where things you're judging, whatever, the country, somebody you're mad at, just pull out any energy of judgment. And especially judgment of yourself, where you're not good enough, where you make yourself wrong. Pull out all judgment energy. And when that rose is full, send it off to the edge of the universe and explode it. One more rose. Pull out anything that keeps you from having your highest self. Anything that keeps you from the highest version of you. Just set your intention. Don't have to know what that is. Just pull it out, no effort. And when that rose is full, send it off to the edge of the universe and explode it. Now, about 2 feet above your head, the top of your aura, picture a really, really brilliant gold white light up ball. And that ball is fill it with Christ's force, unconditional love, but also that bright light, that ball of bright gold light, is your source code, your crystalline source code that is uniquely you. It's the part of you that exists still and in every life with Source. And when that is big and bright, bring your crystalline source code, your Christ force, down into your heart chakra. And open your heart chakra and let that beautiful crystalline ball of light, you, your Christ force, your Christ being, which is in vertical connection with the crystalline core of Gaia and the crystalline core of Source, let that radiate out this beautiful healing white gold energy. And it goes to every cell in your body, especially anywhere that needs healing, anywhere that needs a special hello in your own being. It activates as it travels through your body. It activates full 12-strand DNA. And you don't have to understand that, just intend that it did, that it does. And then let that gold white light, once your body's full, emanate out into your aura, so you're just cocooned, you're just bathed in this energy of bright white light, beautiful gold loving Christ force light that's actually you, your highest self. Then picture that beautiful white light from your open heart going out to everybody in your town. No matter what town you're in, just picture that that white light is going out to everyone. And then picture that light going out to everyone in your state. No effort. Just intend it so. And then picture that beautiful gold white Christ force life going out to the entire country, and especially to those places that need extra help right now. Florida, Texas, Northwest with the fires, any place else you'd like to send special hello. And then picture that beautiful gold white light going out to the entire planet, to everyone in the world. And you can also send some of it to the earth, to the land and the water, the atmosphere, some healing energy. And once again, breathe in that beautiful prana. And realize, as we're doing this in unity, that we're breathing the same air. We're breathing the same life force energy. We're all made up of the same components of Gaia. And that in unity, in our unity, the Christ force strengthens. Our individual source codes are mingling, and we're working together to heal the planet and to heal those who need it. And realize that this is our highest self coming down to help hold the space for Earth's transition. And then, when you're ready, bring your awareness back into your body, your physical body, your aura. And put out one more rose. And we're going to put in this rose any worry, any concern, any fear you have for the future of this planet or the future of this country. Any anxiety you have about the future, pull that out, fill the rose, send it to the center of the universe and explode it. And then come back to the crystalline core in your heart, your source code, the crystal that's you, the unique crystalline being that you are, the Christ source being. And just let yourself be aware that there's nothing on earth right now that's not in harmony with Earth's ascension. And our job is to hold this space, hold this vibration of love and Christ force of our highest self. We're the ground crew. And that the masters and source, the council of light, they're on top of what's happening on earth. There's nothing out of alignment. There's nothing wrong in your life. There's nothing wrong on earth. It's just a time of recalibration and purification. And just be confident in that. Be neutral in that. That things are as they should be. And that you are unconditional love. That you have unlimited source energy in your crystalline source code. Now, picture a huge gold sun above your head. Call back all your energy, all your wisdom, all your knowledge from anywhere you might have left it. Any lifetime, any place, person. Fill in with your higher wisdom and love of yourself, gratitude and appreciation for the wonderful being that you are, the opportunity to be on earth at this time and do this work. Any colors that you think would feel good right now, and some amusement. And pop that gold sun and fill it in, bring it into your head, your face, your neck, your shoulders, arms, hands, your torso, your butt in the chair, your legs, your feet. Spill it out into your aura. And then set your crown color at a comfortable color for you in present time. That white gold might be a little high for your body. So reset your crown chakra. And when you're ready, stretch. Touch your feet, make it real, bring it into the body, and come back when you're ready.
That was great, Debra.
Yeah,
and we are at the top of the hour, so if you, the good thing is that we don't necessarily have to be in Boulder to take your classes. So if you can let us know really quickly about your upcoming classes and how they can get in touch with you to sign up for those classes, even if they're not in Boulder, that'd be great.
Well, the next class will be November 5th. It's a Sunday from 1 to 3 Mountain Time at Psychic Horizons, and it's a Way of Mastery seminar and study group. A lot of meditations in that one. And the Way of Mastery is a channel, Jesus channeled that book. So it's his lessons, his Essene teachings. And then end of January, there'll be another Secret Knowledge of God's Kingdom. There'll be another Bible class. So, and there'll be more. So just psychichorizons.org, and you can sign up for the Way of Mastery.
Fantastic. Fantastic. We're actually planning, we were speaking with Mary Bell about potentially doing a trip out to Boulder in January, and we'll see how that goes, because I know it's the coldest time of the year for us down south.
Yeah, well, it could be cold, it could be warm too, so.
Yeah.
That's true. And again, thanks. We had this was a wonderful podcast with Debra Scott. We had a wonderful meditation at the end, first time doing that, and I know I'm on cloud 9 from that, and hopefully everyone enjoyed that. This is Intrinsic Motivation from a Homie's Perspective. This is Hamza.
And I'm David.
And thanks again, Debra, for your time.
Well, thank you for inviting me. This was awesome.
And we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, ciao.
Bye-bye.